Did I miss a sign somewhere? Did I miss a sign? Pay attention. And pay attention to what you have heard. Now, this is important here. Some people might have heard this phrase before. Selective hearing. Anybody here have that? It's a good thing to have when you're listening for God's voice, to have selected hearing. Why? Because there's a lot of other voices out there that are trying to get your attention, and most days succeeding. Most days they succeed in getting our attention, in turning our heads to the left or to the right, in getting us to go this way or that, in getting us to think this way or that. Pay careful attention to what you have heard. Be selective in your hearing. There's so many voices out there that try to bully us into a particular mindset, trying to shame us, trying to hijack the mission and the message of Christ in His church. What is it we sang in our opening hymn? Major Wayne led for us. Jesus, Thou art all compassion, pure, unbounded love Thou art. That's not the only message we get sometimes. There are other voices out there, many currents that try to whisk us away. One of them is familiarity. Preach it, preacher, but I've heard it all before. So familiar with it. So familiar with it. Familiarity breeds what? Contempt. And even with the gospel of God itself, many times you follow the church age through, and the church got comfortable and familiar in its place, and it showed to be in utter contempt after a while of the very mission of God, and had to be repurposed, had to be refocused again. They were shamed. They were kicked out of the ministerial. No, they weren't. They weren't allowed into the ministerial early Salvation Army. Why? What were they doing? How many times have I mentioned it here before? What is it that the Salvation Army did to gain such a moniker of those people are off the rails. Those people are that's not the true church. Why? What was it that we were doing? We had stripped down everything that would hinder in order to get to the people who needed to know that God still loved them. And what is it was preventing us from being there? What was it that was preventing us? It was many things, and Booth, in all of his wonder and his wisdom, he was still human, by the way. We put signs up and pictures up of him sometimes, and we seek to elevate him. I've even seen some where he's up kind of on par with that picture of Jesus. Where did we get that picture of Jesus anyway? I don't know. Anyway, back to the story. But the army was kicked out, was not allowed in. Why? Because it stripped itself of all of the things, of all of the trappings of a church that didn't even go down. Start the Salvation Army. It was the church. The church. And it started a movement there. And now, praise God, we're respectable. And we hate to lose that, right? We hate to lose it. We get concerned now, we might be seen as not respectable anymore. If we go and associate it with that group or with that group, what's the rest of the church going to say? Might kick me out of the ministerial. Oh. What is it that we're called to do? To listen. There are many currents that would seek to whisk us away. That prevalent tone, another one, the prevalent tone of the company we keep. Sometimes I get concerned when I hear the church people pronouncing the obituary of the church. Oh, it's done, it's gone. It's founded upon God, upon His Word. It is anchored behind the curtain, in heaven itself. It reaches down to us who are the suffering. You see, we can't see above the line, but that doesn't mean there's nothing above the line. Where do we minister? Where do we live? We are not up on with the glorious sun. We are not with the triumphant sun. Where do we live? We walk as Jesus walked in the world that he loved, with the suffering Son of God, who was acquainted with grief, familiar with sorrow, who chose the side of the one no one else would choose. That's where we live. That's where we live. Jesus, thou art all compassion.